True wealth is defined as things that money can't buy and death can't take away. And when you really when you're in your quiet space, think about that. That's really what it is.
Right. Because what do you value in life? What's important?
Starting your route to retirement.
Welcome to the Guided Retirement Show. I'm your host, Dean Barber. Welcome to episode 1 of season 9 of the Guided Retirement Show. Today, I'm having a conversation with a very good friend of mine for a number of years. It's Ken Osiwala. He's a managing director for Modern Wealth Management in Troy, Michigan. And Ken and I are going to talk about what is the true definition of wealth, or how do you define true wealth. Please enjoy my conversation with Ken Osiwala. Before we hop into today's episode, I want to remind our listeners and viewers that you can access the same financial planning tools we use for our own clients on your own time, and all from the comfort of your own home. All you need to do is visit the link in the show notes and click the Start Planning button. From there, you can start building your retirement plan, no cost, no obligation. Ken Osiwala, Managing Director, Modern Wealth in Troy, Michigan. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing well, Dean. It's good to be here in Kansas City.
Yeah, good to have you here. So you and I are going to talk about the definition of true wealth. And we've talked a lot about wealth on the podcasts that we do, the radio program that we do, and it really occurs to me that a lot of people define wealth in different ways. Do you find the same thing?
Well, you have to really think about it, because Wall Street will teach you to define wealth as how much money do you have? What does your net worth look like? What does your income look like? That's what wealth to them looks like. When you really look at life, Dean, wealth has nothing to do with how much money you have. The money is a tool, but it isn't necessarily your wealth. And that's the way I really look at it.
Well, I would contradict you just by saying that Charles Schwab did a modern wealth study. It had nothing to do with Modern Wealth Management, our company, but they surveyed 1,000 people aged 21 to 75, and they found that group believes that you need $2.2 million to actually be considered wealthy.
That was the magic number?
That was the magic number. 48% of Americans say they actually feel wealthy. Okay. And it was really different for different generations. So for the Gen Z.
How does it feel to feel wealthy, though? Like, how do you
I don't
feel
know, but this was their definition. Okay. So I'm just going to, I want to put this out there because I think it's worth discussing. So $414,000, according to the Gen Z, is what you need to feel wealthy. Millennials say $531,000 in order to feel wealthy. The Gen Xers, $410,000, and baby boomers say $692,000. So it's kind of all over the board as far as feeling wealthy. But it's interesting that this is my 37th year being a financial advisor, and you're not too far behind me. We both entered into the industry at a very similar time. I have clients, and I know you do, and other certified financial planners that are part of our organization that have $2 million, $3 million, $4 million, $5 million, and they always say, I don't have that much money.
Right.
I don't feel wealthy.
Or they always said, I wanted to have more than what I have. I have a lot of clients that come in and say, I always wanted to have 2 million, but I'm 65 and I only have 1 million. What do I do? Like they fell short. You have people that feel like they fell short, even though they have a couple of $1 million in their account. And it's common, though.
It's interesting because I think a lot of people that are what we classify as the millionaire next door, they don't feel wealthy because they didn't accumulate their wealth by having a gigantic income. They accumulated their wealth by working hard and living below their means and saving part of everything that they made. And over time, they accumulated $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, but they never lived a lavish lifestyle. They never had the $1 million income, right? And I'm not saying none of them, but the vast majority didn't. The average American that just saved hard and was responsible.
Yep. Yeah, living below your means, I think that's a blessing and a cursing too, because when you move into the distribution phase of life, what I find happening is when I talk to a lot of people, they feel like they can't go out and spend money because that's the way they live their whole life. and that they were always saving. So they move into that distribution phase of life and they're still saving, which is kind of scary in a way, because that's what you traded your life for, all those working years to move into the phase of life where you're like, I don't even want to spend my money. I just want to use it. I just still want to save it is really what comes across in their life.
Yeah. There's a big mindset. There's a change in mindset when you move into that distribution phase of your life as well. I'll tell a quick story here, and you haven't heard this one before, so this will be new for you as well as all of our viewers and listeners. Working with a couple who are in their mid-60s and had accumulated about $4 million. And again, these were never high earners. They just always saved into their 401k as much as they possibly could, and then they saved more outside of that. And the husband of this couple just lost his mother, and he just inherited $3 million from his mother.
Wow.
Right? So now here they are sitting with $7 million, mid-60s, and the wife of the couple still is nervous about retiring. She's nervous about retiring because she knows how much her paycheck is every month. And when we went through the planning process and I showed them how much they could actually spend on a monthly basis, she was blown away. She was like, why am I still working? We had the conversation. Why are you still working? You didn't have to work and even before you inherited the money. We've been talking about this for a long time. And she says to me, I have to admit I'm scared. I said, what are you scared of? She said, I don't know who I am outside of work.
Wow.
I don't know who I am outside of work.
Wow.
People rely on me at work. I have a purpose.
When you...
And so, again, they got a lot of money, but what you said about the money not being the wealth, right? Is her wealth actually...
The scariest thing is they actually had a plan because they were working with you.
Yes.
So I know they had a plan.
Yes.
But I don't think she had the revelation of that the plan was actually a real plan then. That had to have been it. It didn't she didn't connect the dots.
Well, the whole thing all came back to an emotion. And that emotion was, I don't know who I am outside of work. Again, this is what I do every day.
Yeah. So wealth is just a tool to allow us to do, our money is just a tool to allow us to do the things that we find, what I would call we find wealthy in life, Dean.
So things like spending time with your family, things like creating living memories, experiences, things like that.
But exactly. But do you have to find purpose in just meeting with the people at work? We had a fellow, I have a story I'll share with you. We had a fellow just like that as well. He worked at one of the big automotive companies, and he thought he was in his early 70s, had a few $1 million as well, and a pension, all kinds of financial backing behind him. He did not want to stop working because he felt the exact same way this woman you're describing felt. He had people that relied on him at work, and his big legacy that he talked about as far as work was the young guys that are working at this company that he's mentoring and bringing up through the channels. And when we got into a deep, deep discussion about what he really valued and what he really loved in life, it wasn't that. And I asked him, I said, you told me what you really value in life is your family and your kids and your grandkids, but yet you're putting work and these young guys that are starting out in the company ahead of them. Is that true? He sat back in his chair, Dean, and he said, I think you're right. And he literally sent us a letter. Me and Kyle, another guy that I work with, he sent us a letter the very next day in the mail and said, no one's ever shared that thought with me the way that you guys shared it with me. I'm going to retire.
So there you go. So you helped him discover what the true wealth was. You made a statement years and years ago, and it sticks with me every single day. And your statement was, true wealth is defined by things that money can't buy and things that death can't take away.
Yeah, that's so powerful when you really, especially when you say it's slow.
Yeah.
I mean, if you say it's slow enough, it can get emotional. True wealth is defined as things that money can't buy and death can't take away. And when you really when you're in your quiet space, think about that. That's really what it is.
Right. Because what do you value in life? What's important?
Yep. And when you start to think about that, that's where you think that you need to have, to me, that's where the financial plan actually should start.
Absolutely.
Is designed from that starting point. That's the draft when you're sitting down in front of the architect and the architect is, what is it you want? Tell me, do you want a 2-story home or 1-story? Is it a walkout basement? Is it not? Is it modern or is it traditional? And you start describing all of this to the architect, and then he comes back with this rendering. And the rendering is a little bit about what you're looking for, but it's not exactly what you want. So you describe it a little bit more in your next meeting. And you might have 2 or 3 of these meetings with this architect. And then finally they come up with this drawing, this blueprint that looks exactly what your dreams are. And to me, that's where you need to start thinking about the true wealth and what does it really mean to you. And that's the critical part, I think, where our organization does a great job at it, because we have these discussions with people that let's put all of your finances away, because Wall Street will teach you first thing you need to look at is your financial statements. First thing you need to look at is what your pension is and when are you going to take Social Security. Anywhere you Google search out there, that's all they're talking about. We want to go a little bit above that. We want to say, put all of that stuff aside and let's take a look at what is it you really want first.
Yeah, what's important in your life? And there needs to be a reflection. There needs to be a reflection with your spouse, because a lot of times those discussions don't happen. You live your life, you're together, you do the things, but when's the last time you really talked about what's truly important to you and listened to what's truly important to your spouse, and then said, okay, if we're going to go into retirement together, where we're going to be together 24/7, 365. Let's come together and say, what are the things that we have in common that are important to both of us that we want to live our life like?
The scariest thing is I think people wait until they're retired to even have that discussion, if they even have it. But the crazy thing is, if you wait 1, 2, 3 years into the distribution phase to have that discussion, it's even harder to have it, I think. And it's something, if you can, and you're not retired yet, it's great to have that discussion before so you can start working on it. Not only do you want to make sure you put in enough money into your plan, but you also want to make sure that the financial or the life part of the financial plan is in line with the financial part of it, because they're 2 completely different things. We have the life side and the financial side. And those 2 things have to come together and mesh. And
so what you're saying is, okay, start with the non-financial part. Mm-hmm. Discover what it is that you want to do. And Ken, you and I both know sometimes those conversations can take an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes it's 2 meetings.
That's with our office. The scariest thing is if you're doing it on your own, which you can, but it's almost like you have to have a person who, well, I would call our organization experts at it, because we have hundreds of these a year and we've done it for years. So if you try to do this on your own, it's okay, you can, but
there's a lot that gets missed though.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like, how do you hook and go a little deeper on that particular subject with your wife? I mean, I've been married 35 years. I know you got a lot of years behind you. It's not the easiest thing to do on your own, to have that deep discussion. It's almost like, I don't want to call it a mediator, Dean. Well, but you need somebody to lead and guide you.
You know, I've had multiple clients over the years. We'll finish up a meeting and they're like, Dean, you're the best marriage counselor we've ever had. I'm like, I'm not a marriage counselor. They're like, no, you bring so much clarity and you help us really discover what's important, and you point our focus back to what we should be looking at.
Well, the other comment that I get all the time is one spouse looks at the other spouse and says, I never knew that about you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you were in this meeting with me, somebody that you just recently met perhaps, and you've been married for 35, 40, 50 years, and you didn't know some of these things because they've never had that discussion. That's really eye-opening.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Well, that's the discovery process. And I think that's where the true wealth really is defined, right? It's not in the value of your investments. You can't, I mean, yes, you have to have some money in order to drive that life
it's
that
just
you
a
want.
tool.
But it's the tool.
It's the tool. And if you really think about what, if you were to list off the 5 most important things in your life, that's not going to be one of the top 2 or 3. It's going to be your family, maybe your relationship with your creator, your kids, your health. Those are the things that are, and all of that is gotten or is enhanced with the tool of finances.
Yeah. Yeah. I always, I find it interesting, the same as you, where it's hard to explain to somebody what we do, because if you say I'm a financial advisor, oh, you sell investments, or you sell life insurance, or it's hard to explain until somebody actually sits down with one of us and we take them through that, what we call that discovery phase, or prioritization exercise, and talk about life. We don't even talk about money until we've identified what we want life to look like.
Well, that's like talking about building a house before you've identified the blueprint.
Yeah.
I mean, and really defined it. And it's tough to do that. You end up making a lot of mistakes. I've built things. I've done additions on my home. I've done projects in the yard, where you're doing landscape revisions or whatever, and you do it sometimes and you're in a hurry, and then you're like, I should have did it this way. I should have done it that way. I should have done. That's because you didn't sit down, and we've all made those mistakes before. I mean, nobody's perfect, but when you sit down and you think about your life, and if you're 60, 65 years old, maybe even 70, you only got one shot at this, man. You only got one shot. You're not doing 70 over again. By the time you're done with 70, you're now 71. You don't get to relive 70. So when you're going through it, you want to make sure you've done it perfectly. You've crossed all the T's and dotted all of the I's.
When did you get this realization that it wasn't just about money, Ken?
Well, I've been in the business since 1990, so you can do the math on that, more than 30 years now. And the interesting thing is when you're young starting out, you just want to make enough money. You just want to have enough clients. You just want to be successful in the business that you're in. But once you've gotten there, then you kind of sit back and you think, wow, you know what? These clients actually like me and I'm doing a good job and they're staying here. Yeah. Now, what value can I bring to them? And it was probably within the last 10 years, Dean, that I had an awakening, and it was like, you know what? There's way more to it than accumulating. There's way more to it than asset allocation, and there's more to it than tax planning. All of those things are extremely important. But the most important part is connecting, and I said it earlier, the life with the math.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the art and the science of retirement.
It didn't hit me until I think it was 2003 or 4. I was, right in the middle of building a business, and I was working 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, and, going as hard as I could, as fast as I could. And I'm like, I need a business coach. I need a coach. I need somebody that can come in and teach me how to be more efficient so I can get more things done in a day. And in the very first meeting with that coach, she said, I want you to write out where you're going to be in 5 years and in 10 years. And so I start writing all this stuff down about the business, and I start going, she goes, no. She goes, your life. Where are you going to be 5 years? Where are you going to be in 10 years? And I have 5 kids. And I realized that in 5 years, only 3 of my 5 kids were going to be at home. Wow. And within 10 years, they were all going to be gone. Yeah. And I didn't know their teachers' names. I was missing sporting events. I start crying. Literally, I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
I'm missing the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so it was that realization that caused me to stop thinking about how much money does somebody have and think about how are you spending your life? How are you living your life? Are you really living your one best life? Are you really doing the things that are important? Or are you just chasing a dollar? And that's when I changed my entire way of thinking when it comes to working with our clients. And that's where all of what we do today is born from.
I think mine was kind of an evolution because now that you bring it to that level, my oldest daughter, I have 3 children. My oldest daughter was entering high school, and I never had just a simple thing as a really super organized vacation plan with my family. I know it sounds simple, but that's what it was. And I'm like, hey, these kids do spring break alone sometimes. We're never doing a spring break alone. We're going to do spring break as a family all of the time. And that was one of the instances that it actually started for me. It was something as simple as that. And then it just kept building upon that. Like, hey, what can I do better here? What can I do better there as far as making that impact? You know, speaking about being a dad, do you want to be the dad or do you want to be the dad?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I wanted to be the dad. Do you want to have a retirement or do you want to have a real retirement? Like something that's fulfilling and actually leaves that legacy. And I call it the wow factor. What are you walking out with? WOW, walk out with. What are you going to walk out with? And if it's just, I left a lot of money or I just went on a cruise to, you know, the Mediterranean, those are nice. Don't get me wrong. I have aspirations to do some of that stuff and our clients are doing it. Those are all good. But that lasting legacy is really the part that's important.
And you know, I've seen it on both sides. And you've probably had the same experience where you got a child, an adult child in their 50s. You're having a family meeting about, you know, what the plan looks like and how the trust is set up and what the rules are going to be and all that. And I've had adult children in that meeting say, I don't really care about the money.
More times than not, they say that.
Yeah, I don't really care about the money. You know,
yet the parents are all worried about it.
Right. And some of them will say, Mom, Dad, go spend it. I'm going to be fine. Go enjoy your life. Quit worrying about me. I'm in my 50s now.
Yeah. How many times I get that more than any other comment is like, we're good, Dad. This is you worked hard for this. Don't worry about us.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Well, what else on True Wealth, Kim? We'll wrap it up here.
Well, you know, I guess in order to make sure, if you've never thought about this is the way I would conclude, Dean. If you've never thought about true wealth from this perspective, you need to take time to do it. This isn't like a 5-minute plug it in on the computer and you're going to find something on some website that's going to figure all of this out for you. It's really sitting down with an expert and saying, what is it that I can do and what can I do better that maybe you don't even see that you're not even doing.
Right.
You know, I mean, sometimes why does a professional hockey player have a coach? Why does an NFL football player that's a phenomenal athlete or a basketball player have a coach? I've always asked those questions. Half the time those coaches never even played ball, but yet they know how to see the overall picture.
That's right. They see what the individual is missing. They see an opportunity. They see a special talent. They see a different move. They see something. That's what we do. Right.
And they make it all come together as a team,
right.
You know?
But until we know what's really important in a person's life, we can't have a discussion about what your money should do.
And that's really where I think it all begins. You know, if you don't have that coach in your life, you might have what you think is a coach, but he or she's not necessarily coaching the way we are talking about in today's discussion. And to me, this is the most important part of the financial plan. If this isn't done right, everything else comes in after this.
You might have somebody that can manage your money. You might have a big number on your statement.
But that's just a piece of it.
That's just it. That's it.
That's all it is a piece of the plan. It's like my 2x4s in my house. That's just a piece of it. You got all the lumber and the drywall and the electrical. All these other pieces come together and make it a beautiful home. And same thing with your financial life.
You and I both belong to a nationwide CEO group called Vistage. Mm-hmm. And we had a speaker at our Vistage group who was talking about living a fulfilling life and you know, kind of a lot of what we're talking about here today. Right. And he went through a survey, and I forget who did it. It was something like what Schwab did here. But this survey was all with people who were in hospice.
Wow.
And it was talking about what were their regrets. Not one person said, I wish I had more money in my bank account right now. They all regretted, maybe, not working at the job that I really wanted to work at, not spending the time that I wanted to with my kids or my grandkids, or it was all personal things. It was all things that would have fulfilled their life more, and not one person talked about their money.
Yeah. And you might be doing a great job with your family, and we've had people that have had that. But what is there something that you're missing in your life? We even have some clients, Dean, and you probably have them. They're not the majority, but we have them that don't have family, or maybe they're limited family,
Right?
Or maybe their family disowned them for some reason or whatever. I mean, we got interesting cases that we've worked on, but there's people that you can impact. There's legacies that you can leave behind that are other than money, that I think have so much value that will go on for generations.
Well, I think where this comes in to kind of put a bow on this is that you've seen it many times, as I have, where people have the financial wherewithal to do everything that they want to do, but they didn't know it until they went through the planning process. They get through that planning process. They've identified with their financial advisor what's important and what do we really want to do, and how much is that lifestyle going to cost us. Then the plan validates, yes, you can do all those things, or maybe there's a trade-off. But in most cases, people are there, and it's like, oh, we can do all this? Yeah. But if they didn't ever go through the plan, then what happens is they still wind up living less than what they ultimately could.
They can do it while they're living and not worry about it. And we've used the phrase, give it with warm hand versus cold hands. And it doesn't necessarily need to be with your family. It could be other charities or other organizations that you're impacting to have a powerful impact on life. I mean, those are things that if you don't have a blueprint, if you don't have a plan, how are you going to know that you can actually do it?
Exactly. Well, hopefully people will take some action and get a conversation started with one of our certified financial planners and really discover what true wealth is all about.
Yeah. Well, I would hope so too, Dean. You got one shot at 60, one shot at 65, one shot at 70.
Yep.
Don't mess it up.
Ken, thanks for joining me here. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Dean.
Thanks again for joining me here on the Guided Retirement Show. If you'd like to get a conversation started with one of our certified financial planners, you'll find a link in the show notes where you can find our schedule. You can have a virtual conversation with us, a phone conversation, or we're happy to meet in person. Don't forget, we're offering you access to the same financial planning tools we use for our own clients. Just get out to the link in the show notes and click the Start Planning button and begin your retirement plan from the comfort of your own home.
Starting your route to retirement.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to leave a comment and share this episode with your friends.
Investment advisory services offered through Modern Wealth Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor.